you will probably be unhappy. Do you see what I mean? All of these questions are very complicated questions, and these are really the questions that you want to look at. But the basis of it is you've just got to become valuable. You've got to create value out in the marketplace. The more value you create in the marketplace, essentially, the quicker you will become a millionaire. So I hope that answers your question, which takes us to the fifth question, which says, how would you feel about your parents splitting up? And it goes something like this. My parents are splitting up, and I honestly don't know how I feel. I am not upset or anything. I've been told a few days ago about it, and I've thought nothing of it other than what house will we be getting and stuff like that. But that's basically it. I just don't know that there has been some family. I just know that there has been some family issues, but I've not really been involved. And my parents just told me that they're splitting up. Then we got McDonald's. Then we went and got McDonald's. They are both too old to have more children. They might have partners, but I probably just won't think anything of it unless it affects me. Well, great question. So let me firstly say I'm really sorry, obviously, that your parents are splitting up. It doesn't really matter what age you are. It doesn't really matter what the circumstances are that have led up to the split. I think it's always upsetting when any parents split up. I would be upset if my parents split up. So I'm really sorry that obviously they've decided to split up. The other thing that I would consider is, and I always talk a lot about this, is the context. I think when things tend to happen, and particularly when you're younger, you tend to think that everything revolves around you, that everything is your fault, or that everything that is happening around you is as a result of you. But as you get older and you mature, one of the things that you begin to realize is that everybody has their own agendas. Everybody has their own problems. Everybody has their own intentions. And so one of the things that becomes really important is to look at context, is to understand why people are doing what they're doing. Because a lot of the time we judge people for what they've done, but we judge ourselves for the reason why we've done what we meant to do. And I think when you start looking at people and the decisions that people make, and you start asking yourself, I wonder what would have happened in order for these people to be like this. Let me put it like this. So I was explaining to a friend of mine recently who was explaining to me that they were really upset with their parents and they didn't really understand their mum. And I was explaining to him that, look, if you don't understand your mum, then that means basically there's a piece of the puzzle that you're missing. I was explaining to him like this: the way in which people work is like this. When we meet people, people start telling us things about them, and as they start telling us things about them, we essentially start. If you can imagine their life being like a massive puzzle, we start putting the puzzle together. So if, for example, somebody says something like, oh, I'm really into art, and then they say to you, that's one piece of the puzzle, that the fact that they've said that they're into art. And then if they later on say to you, oh, and I'm working in an art gallery, they said that they like art, they work in an art gallery. Now you start putting the pieces together. If you start meeting people and they start telling you things about them, and you start learning their behaviors and the way they act, and they share their story and their truth, but the puzzle doesn't make sense, it is because usually you're not seeing the context. You're not seeing the reasons. There is something below it that you're missing. Okay? And when you are missing the foundation, when you're missing the glue, when there is essentially what you're missing is like the picture. So when you get like those puzzles, those puzzles that you put together, so you get a picture of like a train or a railway line, and you're going to put it together. When you can't understand the picture and put it together, is because part of the reason is that you haven't got the big picture. You haven't got context. And so what I would share with you is, you want to just talk to your parents, actually. That's what I would do. I would ask, Mum, can I ask why did you decide to obviously get divorced? Like, what's your reasons? I'll ask your dad. Dad, why did you decide to get divorced? They might tell you the truth, they might not tell you the truth. Because when someone's hurting, a lot of the time, the way that they defend themselves is to cut off all emotions. They don't want to talk about it. But that's what I would do, because a lot of the thing, when you're younger, I think there is a tendency, and in fact it is a defense mechanism, when you are experiencing a lot of confusion and a lot of pain and a lot of trauma, your mind actually shuts it out. It's called disassociation. Your body, and this is basically what happens when like someone's been raped. A lot of people who've been raped can't remember what happens because they're numb to it. They actually disconnected their emotion or their soul, their being disconnected to the actual physical act. And when you're a child and you go through a lot of trauma and a lot of pain, your body literally disassociates because it's too much. Your body and your mind and your psychology, it just cannot handle it. It's too much. So one of the ways in which we do that is, of course, we start talking. And as you start talking, you start to understand and see things from a different perspective, which gives you context. And then that creates loads of neural pathways. Stuff that's way too complex for me to get into. But the point being is, I would ask your parents, right? A lot of people have their own reasons for why they do what they do. And if you don't ask somebody the reasons why they've done what they've done, you have no choice but to make up your own reasons as to why they've done what they've done. That's what I would share with you. You've got to ask your parents. If you don't ask them, you have no choice but to make it up for yourself as to why they've done what they've done. So I hope that that's useful for you, but I'm really sorry about your parents. And do you know, actually, before I finish it off, let me finally finish it off with this. Do you know what I would do? I would start journaling if I were you. I would go and get a journal and start writing down what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, what I'm seeing. Because I think that part of the reason that you don't feel any way about it is because you've not really connected with your emotions yet. Right? You've not integrated what is going on with who you are and how you feel and what you're experiencing and what it means to you. The two haven't actually aligned. And I think if you will just go and buy a journal or notebook and just start writing down whatever you want. It can be, I like my mum, I hate my mum, my parents are going through divorce, today we went to McDonald's, whatever it is, just write it down. And in the months and years to come, you will get the purpose. You will get an insight or understanding as to why you needed to write down these feelings. At the moment, they won't make any sense, but later on, you will. You will get a revelation. You will get an insight, a lesson learned that you won't be able to because you won't remember what you were feeling today or what you're going through today. Just something for you to think about. But thank you very much for the message. Okay, so that takes